Right, welcome everybody. What I'm going to do is do a short presentation, at least I hope it's going to be as short as I can, attempting to turn all this information into a very simple presentation of the facts of what's gone wrong over the last 10-15 years with Chandlers House. And I left the tour video with the question, where did the money go? And today I'm going to attempt to explain where that money's gone. I'm going to start off with a quotation from a Charles Dickens book from Mr. Micawber in the Pickwick Papers. And his view was that if you had £20 and you spent 19 shillings and sixpence, the result was happiness. If you spent £20 and sixpence, the result was absolute misery. And that's where we are today, having spent hundreds of thousands of pounds on a building, and we have a building that looks like it would do justice to the worst council estate in England. I'm going to go back a long way, unfortunately, to start the presentation, and it starts with the roof in 2001. In 2001, Jenny Barden was the market property manager of Country Property Management. Already the roof was leaking. It was to do with the tiles were very poor quality when the building was set up, built in 1987, and over the next 14 years several leaks had been repaired, and it was deemed that we should change the roof, replace the roof. Jenny sent out in February 2001 she got a quote from Maguire Brothers for £55,000 plus 10% costs. So the deal would have been £60,000. Nothing happened with that quote. A year on, in February 2002, she sends out a further communication. Is it really necessary to re-roof the building? There were several other questions in here that she asked, but that was the key one. And the short answer was yes, due to the inferior tiles. 3 quotes were then obtained. One from A.E. Hughes for £68,000 including VAT, Holloway Buildings for £62,000 ex-VAT, which would have meant a bill of something like £75,000, plus the Maguires one weighed in the £60,000. There doesn't seem to have been a meeting to discuss this. What seems to have happened was letters and emails went backwards and forwards to various people. Dr. Sheldon and Andrew Stewart wrote in letters agreeing with it. Other people, no longer with us, put in letters that they disagreed with it. Ian MacDonald, a stroke of wisdom, decided that if the roof wasn't going to be replaced in 2002, then they should put together a budget, start a reserve for re-roofing in 15 years' time, which takes us to 2016. So he was a man ahead of the game. And I think at that time a service reserve was actually set up for £2,000 a month, £2,000 per annum. I'm going to jump from 2002 to 2006, and I'm going to ask you to bear with me on these slides, but it's very important that you understand exactly how Chandlers House has got into the financial mess it has. In 2006, the opening balance, according to NPH&B, was £6,595. Now I'm talking here the Chandlers House service charge funds, which are held on trust for the maintenance and repair and the ongoing bills of Chandlers House. The money is not there to be spent on anything else. The income, and when I talk about income, it's the service charge fees that you pay, plus the ground rent which is paid to the head leaseholder. In 2006, the income including that ground rent was £15,710. The expenses were £16,251. The expenses include £2,000 for repair and redecoration sink fund. Now this was probably the account that was set up, or fund that was set up by Ian MacDonald back in 2002. So at this point in time there would have been something like £8,000 in that account. It goes on to the expenses account because in theory it's been paid out and put into another bucket. In reality it wasn't. The roof, as you could see, is come in at £1,400. So I don't know what happened between 2002 and 2006, but we're already continuing to bodge the roof. And general repairs are an unbelievably low £525. On the year, we actually make a loss of £541. So in Mr. McCulber's words, misery. And the closing balance is £6,054. Moving on to 2007, not a very exciting year, but the opening balance is £6,054. The income, including ground rent, is £15,432. The expenses are very high at £19,959. Now the expenses include repair and redecoration of £5,135, and the general repairs are £2,960. The £5,135 is taken from the sink fund, so the balance there is nothing. So from there on in, there is no contingency plan to prepare for any major renewals and repairs the roof in the future. It's done. At the end of the year, we finish with plus 608, so Mr. McCulber's happy, and a closing balance of £6,662. So moving on to 2008, Mr. McCulber is very happy with an opening balance of £6,602. The income, including the ground rent, is £19,765, and the expenses in total are £16,894, including the ground rent. However, the expenses include roof repairs of £2,720. So in 2 years alone, they've nearly come into £4,000. The general repairs have moved up to £1,658, and for the first time, the lift appears at £1,051. The problem there is immediate, because NPH, together with a quote from All Elevators Limited, say that the repairs bill should be £8,000 because it needed a major overhaul. That major overhaul was not carried out, although the flat owners of 5 to 10 paid additional money into the account. The sink fund, of course, is zero. On the year, the profit or balance is £2,871, and the closing balance has increased to £9,533. Mr. McCulber is in heaven. The other thing that happened was that Ian MacDonald was fired as a director. He didn't know that. he found out having a meal in Little Italy when Mr. Selwyn walked up to him and said, "By the way, Ian, you're fired." Bit like Alan Sugar on The Apprentice. Before we talk about the accounts in 2009, I just want to make one point. This is an article that was in the Sunday Times on the 5th of October 2015. What it is, it says, your very own mansion for a mere £18,000. What that is actually is the purchasing of head leases, which they go into auction. Anybody can purchase head leases from anywhere. One of the benefits of purchasing a head lease, and I'll read it, they are seen as highly secure because if the leaseholder defaults on the small annual charge, they may forfeit the whole asset to the freeholder. I want you to remember that. We'll now move on to 2009. The balance, as we said, was 9,533, including the income. Income including ground rents was £16,265. However, the big number is £26,789 on expenses. These include repair and decoration, £4,738, which had the £2,000 sink fund from 2006 continued, would have been paid. This amount would have been paid out of that. And a general repairs of £9,370. What was repaired for £9,370? That's a lot of money. So Mr. McCauber would have been distressed to find himself minus £10,524 on the year and inside a debtor's jail. The closing balance is wiped out. All the opening balance is £9,533 and the company or the service charge account is in debt for £991. During this period, Eagle Crest purchased the head lease with the help of Kate Taylor of NPH&B against the wishes of several of the flat owners. Mr. Selwyn's company is Eagle Crest, and from this point on he has a clear conflict of interest, as he is the sole director of Chandlers House and he is now the owner of Eagle Crest. The opening balance for 2010 was minus 991. The income and ground rent came to £17,748. Also inclusive in this, there was a lift fund for £3,000. The idea behind this at the time was sound, because we've already seen that in 2008 the quote for £8,000 for renewing the lift and repairing the lift was there. So the fact that a £3,000 lift fund was a good idea to pay it that year and maybe into the second year of 2011. The other thing that happened there was an email from Kate Taylor to the flat owners 5 to 10. In this email it says about the increasing their lift fees from £177 a month to £500 a month. At the same time as their fees are increasing, it clearly says in here that the service charges to the other flat owners, the other 14 flat owners, are going down. What company decreases service charges when at the end of the previous year it's £991 in debt? You don't do it. The expenses for 2010 are £15,469, and they include general repairs of £3,279. You can see the lift repairs come to £799. So there's a deficit there. The lift fund already owes the owners £2,200. There is no sink fund to pay for the general repairs, so the lift owners have paid for the general repairs in the main. A balance of £2,288 in the year belongs to the lift owners. The closing balance is £1,297. Mr McCorber is now out of jail on paper, but he's still owing money. The opening balance for 2011 is £1,297. Income comes to £18,978, including the lift fund of £3,000. The expenses are £15,786. Those expenses include general repairs £706, lift repairs £562, and for the first time limited company expenses for £545 appear. There is no such thing as limited company expenses. Believe me, I run a company. Sink fund, £0. The closing balance is £4,489, all of which belongs to the lift fund owners. At the general meeting on 7th of December 2010, as Mr Selwyn was the sole director, as he has been for many years, since he fired Ian in 2008, Tony, his best friend and fellow property developer, is shoehorned in as a director. And also at the same meeting, Theo and Inga, who owned flat 5, appealed for account transparency for the finances of 2009 and 2008. And they also wanted a budget for the service charges, which they were quite entitled to, as every flat owner was, for 2012. On the 28th of December, Mr Selwyn's response to Theo's email of 21st of December asking various sound financial questions to do with those accounts and also to do with the head lease is to label Theo as untrustworthy and threaten him with liable, and in 5 pages, harassment. At the same general meeting, Mr Selwyn was supposed to inform everybody of the benefits of Eaglecrest owning the head lease. He didn't do that. The notes of the meeting say at the end everybody was leaving and he didn't get a chance. Those benefits have never been explained since. According to Helen's lease, the flat owner's leases all commenced on the 25th of March 1987. The first 25 years' payments were at £1,390 and the end date was the 24th of March 2012. And the next 25 years should have started on the 25th of March 2012, in which case they will go up to £2,780. However, in 2011, the payments started 1 year early with a payment of £2,780 paid to Eaglecrest. 2012, the opening balance is a healthy £4,637.56, but remember, most of that is owed to the lift owners. The income for the year, including the ground rent and the lift fund, is £20,338. Expenses come to £18,190, including the ground rent. The expenses include general repairs, £2,362. The lift weighs in at £591. So the lift owners are now owed another £2,400. And again, limited company expenses appear, £518. They don't exist. The sink fund, again, is zero on the year, £2,149 up. The only reason that it's up is because the lift owners have paid in £3,000. Eagle Crest, ground rent is £2,860, no problem. The building's insurance has been moved from a company that was charging £1,500 a year and to Eagle Crest, and the bill is now £2,074. I'm assuming that's the building interest, because in the bank statements there is no insurance company listed. I'm now moving, the figures I'm now using come from those bank statements. The previous figures were from the service charge accounts provided by NPH&B. So now the figures match up with the bank statements, which any good business they should do. Move on. This is a big year, very big. This is where the game changes. In 2013, the opening balance was £6,786. This includes the lift under £3,000 plus ground rent, and extraordinarily, 2 directors' loans for £2,080 and £960. So the total income was £23,733. What I can't understand is why Mr. Selwyn is loaning the service charge fund £3,040 when there's £6,786 in the account. The expenses include general repairs of £2,532, lift maintenance of £619, Eagle Crest for ground rent and presumably the insurance to £4,609, plus 2 cheques for £2,080 and £960. It's those 2 cheques that we need the photocopies of from Barclays Bank or NPH&B. The sink fund is zero, as we know, so the balance on the year is £1,765, and the closing balance is £8,551. I go back to why the company, or the service charge account, needed 2 directors' loans for £3,040. Why? At the general meeting held on the 2nd of February, the first mention of the 9th schedule regulations is enforced. This is a schedule in the lease relating to changes of the apartments and flats, whether you're putting out partition walls or putting down wooden floors instead of the carpets, etc., etc. It's the first mention of enforcement. Although in 2007, Theo fell foul of this and he landed himself with a bill for £558, which was paid to Chandlers House. During 2013, 3 flat owners, Dr. Sheldon, Grant Panhorst and Ian MacDonald, fall foul of the breaches of lease. They admit to Mr. Selwyn, acting in his capacity of Chandlers House director, that they have indeed breached lease. From that moment, Mr. Selwyn walks round the table and puts his Eagle Crest head lease hat on. He then instructs Atwells, his Eagle Crest solicitors, to start proceedings against the 3 flat owners. Eventually, they pay up, collectively £42,000, thinking they're paying this money into the Chandlers House service charge account, when in reality they are actually paying into Atwell's account. The money is then transferred on to Eagle Crest less Atwell's expenses. 2013 also starts to see the start of the infamous McCarthy's £800 Windowgate case, which eventually is going to lead to Chandler's House becoming insolvent. At this time, Mr. Selwyn, quite rightly, separates out the Chandler's House Management Company Limited funds from the service charge funds. So we see a balance in the Chandler's House Management Company funds of £1,278. The opening balance in 2014 was £8,551. This includes the lift fund, which is now down to £2,500 per annum due to the McCarthys being in breach of lease. Includes ground rent, the figure is £20,931. Expenses include £20,561, which includes the ground rent. Expenses include general repairs £4,000, lift maintenance £320, Eagle Crest £7,267, and a cheque for £1,704. Question mark, what's that for? Sink fund is zero, and there's a balance of £370 on the year, with a closing balance Barclays of £8,922. The Eagle Crest ground rent, no problem, £2,780. Buildings insurance, £2,208, no problem. But what was the other £2,254 for? Breach of leases continued with David Haywood and Steve Brown paying cheques to Atwells and Eagle Crest. What those amounts were for, I don't know. The McCarthy's Windowgate case is still continuing, and in the 2014 abbreviated accounts, it says Chandler's House Management is engaged in litigation as defendant in proceedings brought against it. That's the McCarthys. The directors of Chandler's House Management Company took formal advice regarding the position in relation to costs. They were advised to fully expect the company to be successful, ultimately in recovering its costs from the claimants, the McCarthys, who chose to bring these proceedings. That advice was based on the contractual position and is understood not to depend on the outcome of the proceedings. Remember that. In the share Chandler's House Management Company accounts at this time is £1,278. Eagle Crest loans 2000 and 2014. In May 2013, the service charge account opening balance was £14,069.69. On Thursday the 9th of May 2013, the account received a credit from Eagle Crest for £1,080, reference Chandler's House Directors Loan. The same day, the 9th of May 2013, a cheque number 100277 is presented to Barclays Bank for £1,080. This was then paid out of the account on the 15th. November 2013, the service charge opening account balance was £10,231.03. And on the Monday, the 18th of November, a credit into the Barclays account from Eaglecrest for £960 appeared. Reference Chandlers House Director's Loan. The same day, the 18th of November, a cheque number 100284 is presented to Barclays Bank for £960 and then paid out of the account on the 29th. Wednesday the 13th 2014, there is an Eaglecrest direct debit for £4,486.75. The payment includes the Chandlers House Director's Loan of £2,040, together with payments for insurance of £2,073 and an unspecified £338. There are questions to be answered on this. So the Eaglecrest loan questions that need to be answered, because as we have seen in the service charge account for 2013, there was no need for any extra funding. So, question one was, what was the purpose of the Eaglecrest loan to the Chandlers House Management Company by the directors in May for £1,080 and again in November for £960? What was the purpose? Why were cheques for £1,080 and £960 presented to Barclays Bank on the same days as the Eaglecrest loans were received into the service charge account? Was there any minutes produced by the Board of Directors authorising these loans and payments? Who were the cheques made out to? Why did Eaglecrest not want to pay the two cheques from their own bank account? Why are the loans and payments not mentioned in the 2013 Chandlers House service charge and income and expenditure accounts? And in addition, why have the flat owners not received 2015 CHMC limited accounts and 2014-15 service charge accounts? The opening service charge account held in Barclays, £8,922. The income again is £2,500, and the ground rent, and the total figure is £13,263. That's a big drop from previous years. The expenses come to £18,227. The expenses include general repairs of round about £3,000. The reason why there's a question mark against that is because in the statements I know who the people are, like Mr. Tiddy and other people like him, but I don't know exactly what they do. So I've lumped those. What I don't know, can't allocate to, as being £3,000. The lift maintenance comes to £886. Problem with that is that the lift was decommissioned in May 2015. So how could it have been running up costs from there? Eaglecrest's expenses are £5,013, which is slightly above what they would normally be for the ground rent and the insurance. Sync fund, of course, is zero, and so we're minus £4,962 on the year. Mr. McCalver is back in the debtors' prison. The closing balance is £3,959. The McCarthy's Windowgate case is still continuing, and the shareholders' funds in the CHMC limited account remain static at £1,278. The opening balance for 2016 is £3,959, and the income is £9,183, which includes the lift funds and ground rent. The expenses to date, according to the bank statements, are £5,124. General repairs £1,400. Lift maintenance £169. The lift is out of action. Why is somebody coming round to see it? Richards and Watson and Co, the accountants, I'm presuming this is Richards and Watson, we paid them £1,152 despite the fact they haven't lifted a finger for over a year when they resigned back in 2014. The sink fund is zero, so the balance on the year is £4,060. In June, finally, the McCarthy's £800 window case comes to an end. Chandlers House win the case on a technical issue, i.e. that the agreement that Robert and Mr Selwyn came to back in 2013 had not been written down on a piece of paper, so therefore could not be admissible in court. The costs of the action on Chandlers House side, with barristers and Atwells, came to £60,000. The judge decreed that the McCarthy's should pay 50% of those costs, with Chandlers House picking up the other £30,000. This £30,000 is to be paid out of the Chandlers House management account that currently has £1,278 in it. Chandlers House service charge debts for 2016. At the 29th of September, the balance in the Barclays account was £8,019.43. The lift owners were owed £13,818. EDF, who provide electricity, probably around about £1,000. Beecher Cleaning, around about £560. Eagle Crest rent, which is due about now, ground rent, is £2,780. The buildings insurance is around about £2,208. That's due any time. MPH&B, who knows? Mr Tiddy, who cleans the bins, he's owed about £300 because I can see that they're actually being cleaned, even if they're a complete bloody mess most of the time. And so the total debt is at least £21,000 plus, and Chandlers House is burning. Well, the funds are burning anyway. The Chandlers House Management Company Limited, debts 2016. The closing balance of Barclays is £1,278. That was in 2015. Atwells are owed at least £30,000. Blade Laws for his efforts at the general meeting and subsequent letters since, £1,200. Eagle Crest, God knows what for, £15,000. If that was to put us into liquidation, it seems a very high price to pay. So the total debt is at least £46,200 plus, and the result is insolvency and misery for the flat owners and shareholders. Chandlers House, pro bono. This goes back to a famous case by Cicero, a famous orator and consul dictator in Rome BC 81, and this came up at his very first case. Pro bono. Who benefited? Was it the flat owners and shareholders? I don't think so. What about Eagle Crest, accountants, solicitors? There's question marks there, but they certainly all benefited. The big question for all of us is, do we bail out Chandler House Mark 1, throwing good money after bad, or should we create Chandler's House Mark 2? The creation of Chandler's House Mark 2 will be the subject of a business plan which I hope to be able to produce a video of next week.